Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea. This is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. We've actually had a good bit of news over the last week, and then we have the Pokémon Day festivities on the horizon, so we'll be breaking all of that down and rendering our predictions. And then in the main segment, we will be looking ahead to Switch 2 and talking about some of the franchises that were once on Nintendo consoles but have been MIA on their systems for a while, and we would love to see them come back. Joining me for all of that is freelance writer and purveyor of board games extraordinaire, Ben Bertoli. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm thriving and surviving, just hanging in there. It's still cold out. Still lots of people who are sick.
Myself included. I am quite sick for this recording. I'm trying to put on a brave face, but yes, the tissue box immediately off camera to my right is getting very good use today and yesterday.
Well, I was supposed to come on a week or two, a few weeks ago, but I was sick and my throat was killing me. So I'm certainly doing better in that regard, and I think I'm on the mend, and things are looking a little better outside. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, apologies to the listeners and viewers of the show if my voice does start to give out a little bit near the tail end of this show, but I'm going to do my best here. I'm also going to do my best not to cough or sneeze into the microphone, but just be warned, if my voice sounds a little off, that was probably going to be the reason. But Ben, we are all currently waiting eagerly for more information regarding the Switch 2. We got that announcement trailer the day you actually came on the show.
That's right.
You were on to talk about Donkey Kong Country Returns HD and then talk about Donkey Kong gimmicks. But that same week we got the Switch 2 reveal. And first of all, since we haven't really talked about it, what are your predictions for the price and release date?
That's a hard one because I feel like, historically Nintendo consoles launch either in the fall or the spring. Very rarely have gotten anything in the summer. It's possible. I'm thinking maybe August for a release date, and then I'm probably about $400 would be my guess.
Okay. So what I put out on Blue Sky when this viral thing was going around of like, hey, what's your predictions of like the big launch game, the release date, and the price? And I said Mario Kart 9 or 10, whatever they end up calling it. June 20th is my prediction for release date because I'm just tracking it historically against what the Switch 1 rollout was compared to like when they did that first trailer. Then they did like the full reveal. Then they did the hands-on campaign with consumers. Yeah. And if you measure it against that, it would put us around mid-June. So that's why I'm saying June 20th for my prediction. And then $400 is also the price that I am guessing here.
Yeah. I would love a summer release because I'm a teacher and I will have, a whole lot of nothing going on probably, most days. So I could, dedicate a lot of my time to launch titles and speculating and stuff like that.
So one analyst agrees with us on that price prediction. So Joost van Drunen, who I'm sure I'm butchering your name, I'm so sorry, co-founder of Super Data Research, said that $399 is a sweet spot based on current market dynamics and platform positioning strategy. And they have a quote that says, quote, "It represents a critical psychological threshold that balances premium hardware aspirations against mainstream market accessibility." And obviously Nintendo has not said anything about the Switch 2 price quite yet, but it did make an announcement that many people weren't very happy about. And that was the My Nintendo Gold points are being discontinued. For people who are not aware, this is the thing that, you would go on to the eShop, you'd buy your game. It would say, oh, you're going to earn 349 gold points from this purchase. And it was essentially equated to 5% worth of your eShop purchase in gold points that could then be applied to a future purchase. And what they're saying is players will no longer be able to earn gold points starting March 24th. Though if you do pre-order a game before the 24th, you will still get your points for that pre-ordered game when you have your full amount charged. So I don't know what game might be. When does Xenoblade Chronicles X? Is that the 20th of March or is that the 28th?
I believe so. I thought it was the 20th, but I could be wrong. That's not one that I've followed super closely. But
That's obviously them getting ahead of like when they announced the full slate of Switch 2 titles in
Hmm.
April 2nd. They're not going to have that on the eShop by then. So, but yeah,
Maybe,
how
I
much?
mean, I'm kind of hoping that they are like doing this to replace it with something better, question mark, hopefully. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I use that quite often. I buy a lot of like indie games, and
Mhm.
just every now and then it feels like, I have like $2 or $3 built up, and then I'm just like, oh, nice, get rid of the tax, or get rid of, a chunk of change that would have, gone towards that game. So I
I mean,
haven't found,
if you get it on sale, like there's a lot of really good eShop sales, and some of those indie games are like $3
yeah,
sometimes, and it's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm getting this game for free. This is awesome.
Yeah, I think I got the Scott Pilgrim like beat 'em up game for like $2 or $3, and it was like essentially just free because I was like, gold points, why not? So
What would a like replacement program even look like? I mean, Microsoft has their Microsoft points, and does PlayStation even have a loyalty program at this point, or is it just? I know they had PlayStation Stars, which was more of like
yeah,
digital collectibles, and it went away for a while, and now it's back, I think. But
yeah, I've
like,
kind of fallen off the PlayStation train in the last year or so. Really, the only game that's grabbed my attention has been Astrobot, and so I'm not sure what they could do. I don't know about that either. I mean, you almost wonder if it's going to be some kind of loyalty program where like you build it up. And I mean, are they still doing the coins where like you can trade them in for wallpapers and little keychains and stuff? Is that still happening?
they are. I mean, they just said
So,
the gold points, so I'm
right.
assuming that the platinum points and I don't know what other color points they have, but
Yeah.
like
Maybe they'll
precious metals.
merge them all into one thing again. Cause I feel like that was for a while, like that, it was like all of them were all in one centralized location, and then they kind of broke it away. So maybe they're looking for something like more cohesive
Back when it was
across the
Club
board.
Nintendo, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I got some really cool posters and like games and stuff out of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'll just make it so that like that you get more platinum points, which you can trade for like cool physical goods.
Right.
Like I
Or
have some.
maybe they'll actually have themes on Switch too, and you could trade it for a cool background that's not just black or white.
Hey, I mean, you could trade gold points for the little like avatar icons if you
That's
want to
true.
build a customizable. I bought way too many of those, and I've made precisely two avatar things. It's just been okay. I have a Breath of the Wild one that I made, and then when Tears of the Kingdom came out, I made a Tears of the Kingdom one, and that's just been my Switch avatar ever since then. And it's like, why do I spend so many of my gold points on these icons, like different elements and everything? I don't know. It's probably a waste of money.
Yeah, it's fun, and it doesn't cost you much. So
Yeah, I kicked around like a few ideas of like what Nintendo could do in the gold program's place. And the one that kept coming up in my mind was like maybe like a punch card system. Like you spend like $10, you get like a like because Nintendo loves kind of like little like novelty like design elements. So I'm wondering
mhm.
if like maybe it's like you have like a virtual punch card, and every time you spend $10 on the eShop, they do like a punch on like a digital card, and then like
Mm.
maybe when you fill it up with a certain number, like you'll get like $10 off. I
Yeah,
don't
or
know, like something
maybe
more
it's like
creative.
a gotcha machine. Like
Oh my
you've
god.
here's a coin, put it in little machines, like here, you got a discount, you got a background, you got a. Now I think people would get kind of mad if they were like, I spent all this money and all I got were some backgrounds. But I'm sure they could make it like work out probability wise that like every 5 times you do it, you get a discount or something. But in between, you bought a game, cool. Here's a fun little icon, that you can use for your avatar, or you can alter the noise your Switch 2 makes when it powers on, something like that.
Yeah, fun little Easter eggs like that. Like we like right now, my PlayStation 5 sounds like a PS2 when I turn it on because of like the anniversary thing that they put out, the 30th anniversary collection of stuff where you can change the themes to be any of like the past PlayStations. That
Right.
would be cool to have it like I don't know. They already kind of do that with Nintendo Switch Online though. When you like
Mm,
go into your N64 catalog, it plays like the coin sound from Mario
yeah.
64, and yeah, so maybe that's not the best idea. But yeah, there's got to be something. I mean, hopefully there'll be some cool themes and everything with Switch 2, because that the personality I think is one thing that the Switch One, for all of its amazing qualities, it is missing the personality
Yeah.
aspect that other Nintendo consoles, especially things like the 3DS.
It's a little bare. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe they'll figure out some way to rework that. Maybe they will find some way to give us some sort of rebate or money back for buying stuff through the eShop instead of going through like a retail partner. Because I'm assuming they make a much better profit margin when you buy it directly from them than
Oh, I'm sure.
so yeah. A reminder that you can support All Things Nintendo by subscribing to the Patreon page, which provides you early and ad-free episodes, as well as access to the community Discord for just $5 a month. You can also find my merch, including the All Things Redacted shirt, because Nintendo issued a takedown on my All Things Nintendo shirt, plus various controller outline designs that you can throw on a hoodie, a magnet, coffee mugs, and other stuff over at tpublic.com. Ben, we have some more Nintendo news, or I guess close to Nintendo news.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about our predictions for next week's Pokemon Day Pokemon Presents at the tail end of this episode, which, by the way, was confirmed for Thursday, February 27th at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. So get that on your calendar. But a big report came out of Bloomberg this week. And according to that report, Niantic, the company behind Pokemon Go, is investigating selling its video game sector to mobile game giant Scopely.
Oh.
So this would mean that Pokemon Go would be under new ownership, and Scopely is the owner of several popular mobile games. Marvel Strike Force is the one I still play daily, but they also have Stumble Guys and the immensely successful Monopoly Go.
Oh, wow.
So that one basically prints money for them. That's one of the most successful mobile games of the past 5 years, I
I
would
feel
say.
like I've seen some like commercials with like big name celebrities, and I'm
Oh
always
yeah,
like, how did they get like Jack Black and Jason Momoa for
yeah. It's
this?
like
But
Jason Momoa, Chris Pratt, and I think there was a
yeah,
female celebrity who was in there as
yeah,
well.
there's a bunch of, but they obviously must be printing real money to be doing
Yeah,
so
not
well.
Monopoly money.
Yes.
So according to this report, the deal is set to be announced in the coming weeks if it goes through, and will likely be in the range of $3.5 billion with a B.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
more than I make in a year. Slightly.
Just ever so slightly.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you still play Pokemon Go at all?
No. No,
I say
I've
still because I assume everybody went through a Pokemon Go phase at some
I
point.
did, yeah. Way back when they were trying to get people to Pokemon Go to the polls. I was hot on it, but yeah, no, I really fall off. I struggle to play like any game that's on my phone. I don't know what it is. Like I feel like I really need buttons, I guess, to enjoy it. And I know there's like different controller, connectors, but yeah, I've been doing the Pokemon TCG a lot,
Okay.
mainly just because both my older and my younger brother are like way into it and will send me like updates and like, oh, look at this card I pulled. So then I'm like, oh yeah, right, I should go like check my packs and battle a few people and things like that. But no, Pokemon Go is kind of like falling off my radar.
So it was like the first year, first 2 years.
Yeah, I'd say the first year and a half
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah, I got into it like hardcore when it first hit, and like everybody, like I was going out at like midnight and like meeting up with a bunch of people from my neighborhood that I'd never met before, and then like somebody
Hmm.
would yell, "There's an Arcanine 2 blocks over," and everybody would just sprint. And then eventually, I was actually the place that I live has just an at the time it was an unbelievable stretch. It had the most, I think it was the highest concentration of Pokestops in the
Wow.
world. And
Wow.
people would come from all over the region to play in my neighborhood. And eventually, enough people in my neighborhood complained that Niantic actually nerfed it.
Wow. That's
So
crazy.
now it's not so great. But yeah, for a while, it was just like chaos, especially when Community Day rolled around, because all of the featured Pokemon would congregate at Pokestops. So
Hmm.
everybody would just like be walking up and down the parkway that I live on, and it's like, man, because like basically it's like I think it's a World War I. Like it's like a memorial to
Yeah.
all of the Minnesotans who gave their life in the World Wars, and so like every like 10 feet is like a little gravestone, and they made every single gravestone a Pokestop,
What? That's
and it's like a
crazy.
3 or 4 mile stretch.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we have a World War II memorial that's like near the top of my neighborhood. And that was like the main, like the hot spot. But it was
Mm.
kind of like in an awkward spot because it's next to an elementary school and you had to
Uh,
cross like multiple roads to get there. So it's kind of dangerous. But
yeah.
yeah.
So I was super into Pokemon Go when it first came out, and then I fell off completely. And then like during COVID, when like it was just like, okay, all I'm doing to leave the house is like walking around my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I got back into it briefly there, but every time I try to get back into it, it's like, oh, my inventory is just in complete disarray. Like
Yeah.
I have too many items and I can't upgrade because I haven't been keeping up with like Pokemon in the gyms and everything. So it's like either I spend real money to increase my inventory slots, or I just have to like delete everything. And I don't know what the meta is, so it's like I don't know. Like it just
Did
seems like
the
every time I try to get back into it, it doesn't feel worth it.
did the same developers make Pikmin, the Pikmin Bloom? Was
Pikmin
that
Bloom,
them?
yes.
That was them. Okay, I
Yeah,
played
and they also
that.
tried Harry Potter.
Oh yeah,
The Harry Potter game was canceled a couple years ago, I believe.
right.
Um, was Monster Hunter? Yeah, Monster Hunter.
They had their own thing.
Now
Yeah.
Monster
Was it
Hunter.
stateside?
Yeah, so Monster Hunter Now. Yeah, that is from Niantic and Capcom.
Huh.
That came out in 2023. Okay, yeah, I did a demo with them at Summer Game Fest a few years ago,
Oh,
and
okay.
got to play that a little bit. It seemed fun. So yeah, presumably all of those games would head over to Scopely if this deal does go through.
Huh.
As somebody who plays one Scopely game and they also acquired this because originally it was under a company called Fox Next. They started development of it, and then Scopely acquired Marvel Strike Force and Fox Next. And I will say that I don't know how it is with Monopoly Go, which is by far their much more profitable game. But I will say that their customer service is quite lacking, like their player
Oh.
support, and
Hmm.
also it kind of goes with the territory that mobile games, free to play mobile games, are going to have microtransactions.
Mm-hmm.
They really test the players'
Uh,
limits, I would say, with at least Marvel Strike Force. Again, I don't know how their other games are, but they kind of rub it in your face that like, hey, if you want to really enjoy this game, you need to drop some money. So I'm hoping that they don't completely destroy it. And I have no insight into what the plan would be for Pokemon Go, nor do I have any idea what Pokemon Go's monetization is even like now. I know they have like events that you can buy to participate in. It's like the Pokemon Go Fests used to be like a
mm,
place you had to go physically. Now I think they still do have those physical events, but I think they also have like virtual events that like you can pay like $20 and get to take part in like a full day of activities or something like that. It's like a
oh
virtual
wow.
ticket that brings. So I think there's already a lot of monetization in Pokemon Go. So I don't know how much more they would add to that, or if they would just stay the course essentially. I mean, I will say to their credit, like they know how to run a mobile game. It's not like remember like the first several weeks of Pokemon Go under Niantic, it was like, man, this team has obviously never had any level of success with their mobile titles because like as soon as
Yeah.
people jumped on the servers, it just crumbled basically.
Crashed. Yeah.
So maybe Scopely will do a good job with it. We'll have to wait and see if this deal does go through.
I was gonna say, I mean, what do you think the odds are that it does happen? Do you think it's pretty high?
I mean, Bloomberg does do very good reporting. I didn't see if this was. I didn't check the byline when I was looking at this article, but if it's Jason Schreier, who is like kind of like the head of reporting over there
Yeah.
for video games, he's one of the, if not the most reliable
Right. Yeah.
games reporter in the industry. So
Yeah.
I trust his sources wholeheartedly. And even if it's somebody else on that team, like I bet that like they have the same level of vetting that goes
Yeah.
through with these sources. So I mean, I didn't talk to any sources about this, but it seems like this would be something that would happen. And Scopely has been pretty aggressive about expansion with like their catalog. And Pokemon Go is one of the
Mm.
most recognizable mobile games to ever exist. It's like that, Angry Birds, and like what else? I mean, what
Doodle jump, cut the rope.
cut the
Trying to
rope?
think
Man, I don't
or
know.
what's that? Jetpack Joyride.
Jetpack Joyride was pretty big
These
for a
are all
while.
older ones though.
I mean, Balatro might be up there at this point.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, it's just something to keep an eye out in the
Mm.
coming weeks because they're saying that the announcement might be pretty imminent for that acquisition. And if it does, that's a massive
Yeah, huge.
addition to Scopely's catalog. They already have like a lot of stuff under their umbrella. So, all right, did you play Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind?
No, I have not.
Okay,
Should I have?
so it's if you like side-scrolling beat 'em ups, it is a pretty good one. It came out last December and received pretty decent reviews, but I think a lot of people actually thought it fell short of what people kind of expected from an amazing studio like Digital Eclipse, and kind of like the elevator pitch of, oh, it's just the Shredder's Revenge for Power
Yeah,
Rangers,
I played
which
that.
Shredder's Revenge is
It's
incredible.
so good.
Yeah, it's one of the best beat 'em ups I've ever played, and Digital Eclipse is one of my favorite studios. So I was a little underwhelmed by this one, but I didn't think it was like a bad game by any stretch.
Hmm.
But thankfully, like, it seems like the studio isn't resting on its laurels, because it has already put out a couple of updates that were completely free of charge to improve like quality of life and all kinds of other stuff. And it has announced another series of free updates that are arriving in the next few months. So we got details of the first update, which hit PC this week, and then other consoles in the near future. So first, there is a new skill point system that lets you upgrade your ranger's attributes, so you can customize whichever character you like playing as to suit your playstyle. Because right now, I think each character has like their own individual like strength, speed, all this other like
Oh, I see.
attributes. So as you go, you can be like, okay, well, I really like playing as the yellow ranger because she's really fast, but I want her to be a little bit stronger too. So you can like, plug in some skill points if you want to. There's also new modifiers called morphers that allow you to tweak things like gravity and speed.
Oh,
So that's kind of cool. And then they're adding a new super move called Power Blast that the characters can use, that knocks all the enemies back, but it does use up a chunk of your health bar, kind of like those old school beat 'em
oh, I
ups.
see.
And then finally, they're adding a new ground recovery system, which, by the way, this sounds small and benign, but I think it's going to actually improve the flow of it quite
Hmm.
significantly. Because right now, when you get hit, you hit the ground and then you lay there for a second, and then your character eventually gets up. This is a new system where if you press your button at the right time, your character will jump back up immediately and you get right back into the action. So,
I mean, you get knocked down a lot in those games. At least I do.
oh yeah, you
So, I
really
mean,
do.
that could be huge, honestly, just to keep the flow of like the fight going. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then one of the big problems with the game at launch was that their online multiplayer was not included. And then eventually they did put it in there, but it was like, okay, yeah, you can play up to 4 players, but it has to be on no more than 2 consoles. Like only like if you and I wanted to play 4 player
Oh,
co-op, you had to have a friend
two
on
and
your couch
two.
and I had to have a friend on my couch.
Huh.
But they're putting up an update in the spring that's going to make co-op playable by 6 players across 6 different consoles.
Wow.
So that's a pretty substantial upgrade.
Yeah, I'd say.
So does this make you want to check this game out at all?
Yeah, I think it does. Honestly, I think when it was first announced, it was kind of on my radar. I mean, I grew up with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and so that's kind of like it's not something that like followed me into adulthood as much as like other things like Ninja Turtles. But I do love me some retro beat 'em ups,
Oh
and
yeah.
if it was already a decent game and now it's being upgraded with all these like quality of life tweaks, it definitely sounds like something that I might use some gold Nintendo points to buy, but
Smoke them if you got them.
not after April, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, I recommend it. I don't think it's a bad game. Again, like
Hmm.
I think, like I know I talked a little bit down on it there. Like it falls short of the industry standard. Is like the
Mm.
worst thing I can say about it, right? Like Teenage
Yeah.
Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge is the nostalgia sweet spot. I'm like you, where I loved Power Rangers growing up, but Ninja Turtles definitely was like my jam, and like it followed me into adulthood a lot more than Power Rangers did. But I still have nostalgia for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in particular. So it's cool to see that they're sticking with it, and they're taking a game that I think might have been like a 7.75 out of 10, and hopefully bring it up to something closer to like an 8.5 or something like that. But
Cool.
overall, a very good game that's out now on all consoles. But that update seems like it's coming to Switch pretty soon. And speaking of games that might be on Switch pretty soon, a few years ago, Ben, I don't know, you seem like you might be a guy who enjoys a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game.
Oh yeah, big time.
So a few years ago, we got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, absolutely incredible remake of those first 2 games. I had an absolute blast reviewing that for Game Informer when
Yeah,
it came out. I think it was 2020.
I think that was my game of the year for that
Oh,
year.
so good.
It was very good.
But we got a report shortly thereafter that 3 and 4 were planned, but then Activisioned, and the studio got absorbed into the Call of Duty development team,
Hmm.
so that project was scrapped. we got some developments here. So late last year, when it was the 25th anniversary of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise, Tony Hawk posted that he was working on something with Activision. He was in discussions with Activision, and that he can't say what that is, even though it's like the anniversary. But all that he could say was that the series does have a future. So he said that. That's great news. This week, a skater by the name of Tyshawn Jones appeared on The Breakfast Club, and he seems to indicate that we are at least getting a remaster or maybe even a new game altogether.
Whoa.
So I found this quote over on nintendolife.com. He said, quote, "I'm in a Tony Hawk coming out. That's cool. They got a new one they're remastering, so that's about to come out. I was in the last one."
It's Tony Hawk's Call of Duty.
Yes.
New game where you skateboard on a gun.
Well, it's funny you should say that. That leads into the next part of this, which is if you thought that was like where there's smoke, there's fire. This is like we might have a flame actually starting here, because Call of Duty Black Ops 6, another Activision joint, they put out a new level, a new map called Grind.
Oh.
And players found a tease that has the Tony Hawk's like skateboarding logo of him like doing a kickflip.
Okay.
And it's in the shape of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, like kind of oval logo. And so it looks like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater logo. It has a skateboarding icon on it. And so it's inside the shop area. There's a sign on the wall, and it says 03/04/25. So hinting at March 4th, 2025 for an announcement of some sort.
Are you sure? Because 03/04 could mean Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 coming in 2025.
It could be. I mean, maybe that's why they chose that date, right?
Remaster. 03/04. Wow. Okay.
That would be a cool reason to choose that date.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
I didn't even think about that angle. So yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, that's the 3 and 4 remaster that we were very upset was canceled a couple of years ago.
Yeah. No, so 2020, when Tony Hawk remaster came out, I got like so back into Tony Hawk that I decided I was like, I'm gonna learn how to skateboard. So I bought a skateboard. Yeah. And I like went to like skate parks, and like I got some like people to teach me how to do like very basic tricks and stuff. And I just like ate pavement so consistently that like I like screwed up my knees, because I'm not old. I'm like 36, but like I'm a track and field guy. So like I've been like running and jumping and hurdling for like the majority of my life. And so my skateboard dreams kind of derailed at that point, all puns intended. And so, yeah, I could use, I don't know if this new game would get me back up on my own skateboard. I don't know if that's healthy for me, but I would still love to play it. That'd be great.
Yeah, if I find out that you're hospitalized because you got back on the skateboard on March 5th, I'm going to be very upset. I actually got really into skateboarding as well when the original games came out. I was in middle school, and I was just like, all right, yeah, this is the coolest thing that's ever existed, skateboarding. And I still agree. Like, skateboarding is undeniably cool.
Yeah.
But I never made it past like, okay, I'm just going to ride like my skateboard down a hill. Like that was the most I ever did.
That's terrifying to me.
It is.
Yeah. And I'm really tall. I'm 6'7". So
holy crap. I had no idea.
Yeah. Like if I fall, it's like a couple stories down, to the ground. So it's a lot to go off of.
Wow. I did not know that. I'm sorry. That threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
I don't even want to see what like a 6'7" skateboarder looks like. Like they're already tall, and then they're standing on like what, 3 or 4 inches of extra height.
Yeah, when I went to go buy my board, the guy was like, he's like, "Do you want like a really like way wider, way longer board?" And I'm like, "No, I just want like a normal skateboard." And he's like, "All right." Maybe I should have listened to him. But
well, yeah, maybe this will be your excuse to get back on the proverbial horse.
We'll see, as long as I'm smart about it.
Yeah, maybe try going down your driveway first.
Yeah. Wear your knee pads and helmets, kids.
Yes. So we go from one game that we hope comes to Switch and is getting announced in the next couple of weeks to a critically acclaimed indie game that is coming to Switch. So Mouthwashing currently has overwhelmingly positive reviews from more than 24,000 ratings on Steam, and has an 87 on Metacritic since it hit PC last September. It also won Best Narrative and Player's Choice at the 2024 Horror Game Awards and won Best Hidden Gem at the New York Game Awards recently. And it was nominated for Game of the Year at the Indie Game Awards. I have not played this, but I've heard nothing but praise for this game. Have you heard anything at all about this title?
I mean, just good things. There's a lot of people that make like fan edits, and I mean, like the like aesthetic of the game is really cool. Like the like
Kind of like PS1.
yeah, PS1 look like low poly, and then just the creepiness. And I'm not someone who handles like scary games or scary movies very well, so I always go in and read like the full plot, like just spoil it for myself because I'm like I'm not going to play this, and if I see it, I don't want to be like because yeah. So I went in, like I read the whole plot of it, and I'm like, "Whoa, this is crazy,"
Yeah, it sounds like it uses like unreliable narrators, non-linear like
Yeah,
narrative.
I could totally see this becoming like a movie, like A24 kind of movie that like
It does kind
gets
of read like that.
yeah, cool, like indie underground type deal. But that's great. I mean, I think the more exposure it gets on the more consoles, the better it is for any game, critically acclaimed or not. So yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe picking it up and giving it a shot. Maybe I do like to dabble in some of the creepier games in Halloween time. And I haven't really looked at the run time, but I can't imagine it's like a super long game.
I think it is a pretty short game. It's a very strange title, but
Yeah.
okay, 2.5 hours for the main
Oh
story.
yeah, yeah. That sounds like a Halloween night excursion to me. So
It
we'll see.
does. So yeah, that's coming to Switch, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S sometime later this year. Ben, sadly, we have some layoff news to close out
Mm.
this news segment. Become all too common in recent years. Both are very successful studios. So, first up, Netflix has laid off an undisclosed number of employees from Night School Studio,
Ah,
which is the development team behind Oxenfree, Oxenfree 2, and After Party.
yeah.
They were acquired by Netflix back in 2021, and according to the reports, the layoffs actually happened back in January.
Oh,
Over on GameDeveloper.com, they say that the layoffs won't impact the current slate of projects, but I can tell you that categorically that is false. As somebody who has been on a team that has gotten layoffs, like let me clarify, from an executive level, the current projects won't be impacted in that they aren't going to cancel them. But from my time working in an ever shrinking team, I can tell you that
mm,
everything from workflow to employee morale to quality of work, everything is impacted when you lose people, and I think it's a little disingenuous to pretend otherwise. But
yeah.
it probably doesn't plan on canceling anything right now, which is probably what they mean by that. Like they're probably not saying like, okay, well, yeah, we have these two games that are in development. They're not canceled just because we laid off these people, but
Hmm.
you have to acknowledge that they will all be impacted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, last year was what the worst year we've had in terms of layoffs in the video game industry. So it's kind of disheartening to see that, I mean, I loved Oxenfree. I thought it was a fantastic game. Um, and the fact that the talent behind that is gone. And then the other studio is it the one behind Marvel Rivals?
Yeah, so let's jump
Okay.
into that. So,
Yeah.
Marvel Rivals isn't on a Nintendo platform just yet, but
Nope.
funny you should mention that because the game's producer, I'm sorry if I mispronounced this, Wei Kong Wu, was just at DICE in Las Vegas and said, quote, "We're already in contact with Nintendo and working on some development kits. And whenever we find that we could provide great performance for our game on Switch 2, we're open to that." And wouldn't you know it, it was one of the biggest games. It has been maybe the biggest game in the industry since it launched in December 2024. So it makes sense that they'd want to bring it over to Switch.
Yeah.
So naturally, in that same breath, NetEase decided to lay off its entire US based portion of its Marvel Rivals development team this week.
Man.
And I think I
It's
just
just
saw that like 40 million players, like that was like their most recent player count. So it's like, it's not a lack of success.
no, yeah. I saw there was like a meme online of it was like two doors. One was like what's the game that kind of flopped? Concord,
Yeah.
right? And it was like one said Concord and one said Marvel Rivals, and they just both led to the same hallway that said like
Uh,
you're being laid off.
Layoffs.
Yeah, like It's like, it doesn't matter. Oh, you flopped, you're getting laid off. Oh, you succeeded, you're also getting laid off. Like it's just such a volatile industry that it's, it's got to be. I don't know. As a kid who grew up like, oh yeah, I want to work in the video game industry. It's just like, man, like uh, do you even want to push people in that direction anymore if this is the result? So
Yeah. So the US based team was headed up by Thaddeus Sasser, who was the game director. And I've actually been spending quite a bit of time on LinkedIn, like looking up like what his level of involvement was. And he, according to him, his team was in charge of coming up with new level design mechanics, new gameplay mechanics. And I found a post of somebody who seemingly worked with the team or at least had knowledge of the team,
mm,
and basically said like, without Thaddeus Sasser, like Marvel Rivals would basically not exist in the form that it is. So he was the one who tipped off that like this was happening. He posted on LinkedIn saying that like, hey, this is a weird industry. Like we just put out like one of the most successful games of the last several months, and here we are getting laid off.
yeah.
And I actually reached out to NetEase and to see if they would give me like more information. And after more than 12 hours, they finally were able to provide me with an official statement. And I'll read part of that right now. Quote, "We recently made the difficult decision to adjust Marvel Rivals' development team structure for organizational reasons and to optimize development efficiency for the game. This resulted in a reduction of a design team based in Seattle that is part of a larger global design function in support of Marvel Rivals. We appreciate the hard work and dedication of those affected and will be treating them confidentially and respectfully with recognition for their individual contributions. We want to reassure our fan base that the core development team for Marvel Rivals, which continues to be led by lead producer Wei Kong Wu and game creative director Gunyung Chen in Guangzhou, China, remains fully committed to delivering an exceptional experience. We are investing more, not less, into the evolution and growth of this game. We're excited to deliver new superhero characters, maps, features, and content to ensure an engaging live service experience for our worldwide player base."
Mm. A lot
So,
of buzzwords in there.
yeah, definitely a PR filtered, executive dictated style of statement. And I understand, like, look, I understand that a US based development team is likely quite expensive for a China based publisher. But, like, does this move scream we are investing more, not less to you?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I guess if they said specifically, like, oh, we're shutting this team down and we're opening up a new team, locally or somewhere else, or here specifically, but it just seems very like broad of like we're working to make the game better and provide all this stuff, and it's like, so like you really didn't need all those people, you know, but
Like, I understand they maybe want to, like, centralize their development efforts in China,
mhm.
but, like, I don't know. Like, it seems like this Seattle based team was quite integral into the product that we ultimately got with Marvel Rivals, which again has proven to be one of the most successful games of 2024 and early parts of 2025.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Like it's
yeah,
just frustrating to see that happen. And I know that a lot of people were like, wait, what? Of all the games to suffer layoffs, like Marvel Rivals should be like the last game to do that. And like I put this out on my Blue Sky account that like, you know, this is a studio that has made a conscious effort. I've talked with like, some people at NetEase and they basically said like, hey, look, we're making a push to get into not only the console market, but the Western console market. And it's like they finally did that with Marvel Rivals. And then you cut off like the team that's like a large part responsible for that. So I don't know. It seems contradictory to what their mission was, or maybe because this is like their first major success, they're like, okay, mission accomplished. Let's get rid of the people who helped make this like the core mechanics good, and we'll just keep the team that's like doing the live service elements. Like I'm assuming that's what a lot of the team in China is doing, is like they're working on a lot of the live
right.
service elements. But it really seems disappointing and disheartening that like a team can work on one of the most impactful and popular games of the last year and still not have any job security.
Yeah. You almost, I mean, I hate to say it, but you almost want them to stumble a little bit at this point to be like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. But who knows? Who
I
knows what
mean,
the future like holds for that specific game?
yeah. I mean,
But
I started playing it back when it first came out and I loved it. And then I stopped to play something else and I've been jumping from game to game, but I keep saying like, oh, I want to get back into Marvel Rivals. Like I really loved that. Like I was a diehard Overwatch player for the first like 4 years, 5 years of that game's
yeah,
existence.
me too.
And it's like I've been looking for something to fill that void, and Marvel Rivals seemed like it was finally it. I'm also a big Marvel fan, so it's like, oh, this is a match made in heaven for me. And I will say that like even though this news doesn't have any direct impact on the like current quality of the game, like you're not going to fire this up after that team was laid off and it's like, oh wow, this game plays so much worse now. But it made me feel like less motivated to go back to it because it's like, oh well, that kind of sucks. That like I don't know, it just feels different now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I mean, if we're being honest, of those 40 million people who are playing the game, how many of them keep up with gaming news to the degree that, we do? And how many of them actually care that much that it would, affect them wanting to play? I don't know. Probably not a lot, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they figure out some way to move this forward and hopefully all the people who were impacted at both Night School and NetEase are able to land on their feet. I know it's a very difficult scene for the industry right now, but Ben, we're going to take a break, and when we return we will be discussing some of the franchises that we would love to see return to a Nintendo console in the near future. We will be right back. We are back, and with the Switch 2 presumably narrowing the tech gap between Nintendo systems and the other platforms, I think a lot of us are hopeful that it will mean a lot more third-party games will once again appear on the system in good working order. Which, by the way, key word there, because we've seen some third-party games come over in not so good working order. But Ben, I just want to take this segment to work through some of the franchises that you and I, whether we have fondness for it or we just know that a lot of people do like these franchises and they used to be on Nintendo systems but aren't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just talk a little bit about when they last appeared and kind of like what we would like to see come over to the Switch 2 if it can handle it. So I think that let me start on this one. I have a few more than you do that we want to talk about. The obvious one that I think is the perfect demonstration of the kind of franchise that we're talking about is Final Fantasy. So the last time a mainline Final Fantasy game came to a Nintendo console at launch, it was called Final Fantasy 3 at the time, but it's actually Final Fantasy 6 over on the SNES, though we have gotten spin-offs like Crystal Chronicles developed for Nintendo systems and everything as well. I would love to see the Final Fantasy franchise in earnest make its way back to Nintendo. Like obviously, like after 6, the Square Enix or I guess SquareSoft at the time developed a very strong relationship with PlayStation. So that's why 7, because originally there was a prototype for Final Fantasy 7 on the Nintendo 64 disk drive,
Mm-hmm.
but then that kind of got abandoned. So they were like, okay, we're just going to put it on PlayStation. And that's, then we got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 finally went multi-platform, but it didn't come back to Nintendo consoles ever again, basically.
Right.
Some remasters, I think 12 Zodiac Age, 10, 10-2 are on there on Switch right now. But like those are, 15 to 20 years after the fact. So I'm talking like bringing this back to modernized games, like not like, okay, well, this remaster of a 15-year-old game. Like if they announce Final Fantasy 13 remake trilogy or remaster trilogy tomorrow, I would bet it's going to appear on Switch,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't count, right? Like you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was some Dragon Quest kind of jumped around, didn't it? I mean, and that's another game that I feel like, really was like a staple of the like Famicom era. And then it was on the Super Nintendo, and then it kind of jumped ship to PlayStation, I think, and PlayStation 2. But, we got the last one, at least the
Yeah,
mainline
11.
one, on the Switch. And honestly, that's the Dragon Quest game that got me into it. So I think, I mean, if they can get that Final Fantasy game on Switch too, whatever the upcoming one is, or one, in the near future, I think that would be huge. I think that would be such a system seller, especially in Japan.
Oh yeah.
That
Now,
could,
would it make sense for them to start with the remake trilogy? Like put remake at like launch and then rebirth like maybe 6 months after that and just like get people on there, because Square Enix has kind of lamented the fact that they kind of cut off their audience by just releasing on PlayStation 5 and PS4 before that for the Final Fantasy VII remake games. And obviously they've moved it over to PC in the time since,
mhm.
but that was after the fact. So I wonder if they are investigating getting it over on Xbox, and also, once the Switch 2 comes out and it's powerful enough to play something like remake, at the very least remake. Like rebirth is probably a lot more
Yeah.
tech intensive given the open world structure of that game. But I feel like a Switch 2, if it's anywhere near as powerful as like an Xbox One or a PS4, it could easily handle something like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Do you think that's like the best place that they could
Yeah,
start with
I
bringing this
think
over?
so. And I think that's a realistic expectation. Like if they were going to move something on there, I think that's where they would go. Um, and then maybe, with just like keep coming back to Dragon Quest with the HD 2D remake,
Ooh.
remaster, whatever thing, I could totally see them doing that with some of the Final Fantasy games as well. And putting those on the Switch would probably sell gangbusters too.
So we already do have the pixel remasters on Switch, which is great.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But I do agree that like the HD 2D has really become like the staple of like the other end of the spectrum. Like it's so
Hmm.
funny that like Square Enix put out like a bunch of remakes, and we got Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake on one end of the spectrum, where it's just like, okay, yeah, this is just like the original game but remade in like this kind of low poly like but still
Yeah.
gorgeous art style. And on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have what they did with Final Fantasy VII remake, where it's like we're just creating a completely different game that follows the story and characters of Seven.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see that. But yeah, I mean, I think that Final Fantasy is the quintessential, like, it would be cool to see them reforge their relationship with Nintendo and getting like the mainline or like the modern day games back on
Yeah.
that system. I mean, I don't know
Absolutely.
about you, but I love playing a good RPG on my Switch. Like if I like I was so excited when Persona 5 came over to Switch. Like that was the greatest thing ever. And Final Fantasy X, my favorite Final Fantasy game, is amazing on Switch. So if we could get 7 remake, 7 rebirth, I don't know if I'll replay them because they're both, especially rebirth, pretty lengthy.
Hmm.
But it would be cool to have them in my library. And also, like if you look at the Final Fantasy games that are available, 1 through 6 are available on Switch through the Pixel Remaster series. 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 2, 11 isn't on there because it was an MMO, but 12 is on there.
Hmm.
14 is an MMO, so it's not on there. But 15 Pocket Edition is on the Switch, which is like the mobile version. But yeah, we're missing 13. So it's like, all right, yeah, well, like if they put that out there, it'd be cool to have like the full run of Final Fantasy over there. And then if you put the remake games on there, and then like some of the modern games, like, Final Fantasy 15, I know is pretty polarizing, but I think it's overall a very good game.
Hmm.
And then 16, same story there. There's a lot of people who really love that game, and a lot of people who think it's like doesn't feel like a Final Fantasy game. It would be great to see some of those modern Final Fantasy titles come over to Switch too.
It's true. And I mean, depending on how much it costs to, make those ports, definitely seems like it could be a good way for them to just, make some extra money to put towards, getting other Final Fantasy games on the system or
Yeah.
development. Yeah.
I will say that for both this game, this franchise, and the next franchise I'm going to mention, I did ask the directors of these franchises, why aren't these games coming to Switch? Or do you want, or is there a chance that these franchises will return to Nintendo?
Hmm.
And they both said, we want that too. So Final Fantasy VII, it was when I was over in Tokyo for our Final Fantasy VII Rebirth cover story, and it was Naoki Hamaguchi. I asked him like, "Hey, like, is there a chance that Final Fantasy comes back to Nintendo?" And he's like, "I hope so,"
Mm.
which doesn't mean anything
Right.
necessarily.
Yeah. But
And then the other franchise that I'm mentioning is my second pick, and then we'll go over to you after I give my second pick. I hope this isn't cannibalizing your list at all, but Street Fighter is the other one
okay.
that the last mainline new entry on a Nintendo console was Street Fighter Alpha 2 on the SNES in 1996. Even though
It's
Alpha
wild.
3 did come to Game Boy Advance a few years later after its initial release,
Yeah.
it was like a compromised version of that game. This is where I asked the producer and director of Street Fighter 6. I said, "Hey, like, would you bring it back to Nintendo?" And they're like, "Oh, we absolutely want that."
Mm.
So that would be cool to see that. We also did get Super Street Fighter 4 3D edition on the 3DS in 2011, but that was also a fairly compromised version of the game.
Yeah.
And also, like, it was just kind of cool to have it, but like, it wasn't anything special. But it was also a few years after Street Fighter 4 originally came out.
Yeah. That's one of the like that's another series that just like I've never super gotten into. But I did buy that as a launch title for the 3DS just because there wasn't like a ton of great options. Like the 3DS started out a little rocky price wise and with game selection, and then it kind of took off. But yeah, I remember playing that, and it's fun, but definitely feel like they could or they should at least bring the full experience to the Switch too, if possible. I think there's some kind of what the second fighting game collection is coming out
Yeah.
soon, or it's got Power Stone on it, which I'm so
So
excited
excited.
about.
Yes.
Oh man, I just want to play Power Stone like all day, every day. I have like a Japanese copy of it, but I don't have a Japanese Dreamcast. So
Yeah, we used to have a Japanese copy at Game Informer. We had a bunch of Japanese Dreamcast games in our vault. But yeah, I mean, Street Fighter 6 runs extremely well on the Steam Deck. Like, it was funny. I was talking to Shuei Matsumoto, who is the producer of the series. He also
mhm.
produces those fighting collections for Capcom. And this was last February at Capcom Cup. I was sitting down with him and Takayuki Nakayama, who is the director. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I was in my hotel last night and I was playing Street Fighter 6 on my Steam Deck online against like other people."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, does it run well?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I actually picked it up for my Steam Deck and I was playing it on a flight and I was like, "Wow, this does work remarkably well." And it feels really good to play in a handheld system.
Mm.
So it's like a match made in heaven for a Switch 2 if they can get it to run properly. Like, I think that would be great. And like, I know that the sentiment towards Street Fighter 6 amongst the hardcore fighting game fans has swung a little bit in the negative direction after having such an incredibly positive launch sentiment.
Mm.
I think that people are a little frustrated with some of like the updates they've been doing. I'm not super tuned into it, but I have seen like some well-known fighting game YouTubers be like, "Yeah, this isn't so great anymore." But yeah, it would be great to see it come over to Switch, and I think it would find a whole new audience. Like, that's how I got into Street Fighter. Like, outside of going to like arcades and everything, I had Street Fighter 2 Turbo on my Super Nintendo. When I went over to Osaka for the Street Fighter 6 cover story, I actually sought out a Japanese copy of Street Fighter 2 Turbo for the Super Famicom because I wanted to have it so badly because I had such a fondness for playing it on Super NES that it all because I was also there for Street Fighter, so it only felt like appropriate to do that.
Mhm.
But that was also a really cool trip because I got to go to we convinced Takayuki Nakayama and Shuei Matsumoto to go to an arcade in Osaka with us and play Street Fighter. We shot a video with them walking around and hanging out in this arcade. So that was a really fun trip. And but yeah, Street Fighter has a special place in my heart, and it would be great to have it back beyond like the collections and everything. Like we had the 30th anniversary collection, which rules, and we have these Marvel or I'm sorry, the Capcom fighting collections that are coming out that are also awesome. But I would just love to see like a modern Street Fighter game on the Switch too.
Yeah, that
So
would be
Ben,
good.
with that, I'm going to throw it over to you. You said you have three games
I
or
do,
three franchises.
yeah.
All right,
I
what's your
do.
first one?
So, well, when you told me about this, I'll be honest. I was thinking more about like Nintendo produced things that we just haven't seen in a while. So some of them are kind of like that. But my first one is kind of like a mix of both of those things, and it's kind of a weird deep cut. And have you heard of this series, Mario, Super Mario? You know about this?
I've heard rumors of it.
Okay, so back in 2006, Nintendo teamed with Square Enix to make Mario Hoops 3-on-3 for
Oh,
the DS. Yeah, basketball. So basketball Mario game that features Final Fantasy characters and like touch controls, and I like was just in love with this game. It's so silly and like so stylized, and like you have to tap the DS screen to dribble the ball and like cross people up, like, you know, and you're like a Moogle, you know, crossing up Luigi. Like it's wild. And Nintendo did some kind of like Mario Sports mix for the Wii, that had like volleyball and dodgeball and basketball was included. But like, I just want a dedicated Mario basketball game again. Like that's what I want them to bring that back. And if they want to get Square Enix involved, Enix, I always get it wrong, involved to like, you know, throw in Final Fantasy characters, or I mean, just make it Super Smash Brothers with basketball. That's all I want, really.
hey, that's what I keep saying they should do for Mario Kart. Just make it like Smash Kart, basically.
Yeah, like why not? But that's one that, like, I mean, it's kind of a one-off, really. Like, there's never been a direct sequel. There was nothing before that. Like, it seemed really odd that that was the like combination of developers that would come together. Did you play that game at all?
I didn't. I
Oh
actually did
man,
not play that game, but I played NBA Street Volume 2, I think it was, that had Mario characters in it.
that was three, volume three.
3.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, so I mean,
yeah.
Mario and basketball, surprisingly good combination.
Yeah, I mean, he can jump. He's jump man. He's essentially, you know, he can dunk on Michael Jordan. There was a while there where EA Sports was just putting Mario in because there was SSX3, I believe.
Oh, man, I missed the
Was
SSX series.
yeah. Hey, that's not on my list, but it should be. They need to bring, you know, like remaster SSX Tricky, or like, you know, I think they did like kind of a grittier reboot there a while back on the PlayStation 3. And you could do like squirrel suit, like fly around and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'd also love to see SSX. But yeah, that's my first one, my first deep cut, Mario Hoops 3-on-3.
That's
Bring
a
it
good
back.
deep cut. More of a dormant franchise.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Um, so last week, I did a tier ranking of all the launch lineups in Nintendo history.
Mm.
And what do you think the number one franchise was for Nintendo launch lineups?
Number one franchise like that
That
showed up the
appear,
most.
yeah, that appears the most in Nintendo launch lineups. Don't overthink this one.
Okay, are we? I have to. Is it North American launches?
Yes.
Okay. Who shows up the most? Mario.
Yes.
Okay.
What do you think number 2 is? I don't think you're going to get it.
Pilot Wings.
Pilot Wings only had 2.
I know. I just
Uh,
didn't think.
coming in at 5 launch lineups, Madden NFL.
Oh, hey.
Mario had 7. Madden had 5. And that is my next entry
Oh,
that I want to see come back, because the last time it was on a Nintendo console was Madden NFL 13, which appeared on Wii and Wii U in 2012. So, I mean, EA Sports has said that they want to bring things like EA Sports FC, which used to be called FIFA, and which, you know, that's always a great sign of a rebrand, is when you have to say previously known as. I mean, we see that with Twitter,
yeah.
and they have to say previously Twitter. It's a really great marketing, but I
Hmm.
understand they lost the FIFA license; they can't call it that anymore. That was not
Right.
an unforced error. But Madden would be I think a great fit for the Switch too, and the sports genre. I think to both your point and my point, is sorely lacking on the Switch. Like the Switch
Yeah.
has a almost unrivaled library. I think you could say like this like Steam probably rivals it, but like Nintendo has the greatest exclusives in the industry, And then they also have an incredible array of indies and third-party support, but it really is missing that sports element. And I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast probably aren't the biggest sports gamers.
Put Mario
But
in there. Come on.
yeah, put
Yeah, throw him
Mario
in
in there.
there.
Yeah. They
Why
should do a
not?
Mario All-Stars like team.
Yeah,
Because
they
they
have
have
that.
like teams from like other
Yeah.
eras that you can play as. Like, so why not have like a Mushroom Kingdom
There's
representation?
that literal Mario enemy that just throws footballs at you and like tries
Charge
to
and
tackle you.
Chuck.
Yeah, exactly. Put Charge and Chuck in Madden.
Yes. I'm gonna go create him
Petition.org.
in Madden.
Yeah. I was going to say we can petition to get him in there. Yeah, I would love to see that.
So yeah, that is my third game that I'm going to bring up. Do you want to go next, or want me to do one more?
Go ahead and do another since you seem
Okay.
to have more than me.
All right. So this is one that has only had 2 entries to date, and only one of them, the debut entry, appeared on a Nintendo console, but it was 25 years ago. Perfect Dark
Oh.
came on Nintendo 64 in 2000, and I know that Rare, who makes Perfect Dark, is now owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft now has a different studio creating a new Perfect Dark game. But hasn't Microsoft said that they plan on supporting the Switch 2?
Yeah.
So it would make sense for them to bring Perfect Dark back to Nintendo. Let's go.
That kind of leads into my next one. Unless do you have more on Perfect Dark that we
No,
need to talk
just I
about?
think Perfect Dark is a
Okay.
great fit for Nintendo. I mean, like I said, like it's on Nintendo Switch Online. If you
Right.
play the N64 Mature app, which is the weirdest convention that has to happen on Nintendo, is like, oh, we have the N64 Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack. We also have the N64 Mature Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack.
That's
And
right.
it's like, wow, this is
After
just
After Dark.
unwieldy. Yeah, the After Dark.
Well, I mean, on that note, I mean, what's better than Perfect Dark? A new Perfect Dark on Nintendo? It's a new Banjo Kazooie on Nintendo. Because that's,
Hey.
I think last time I told you this is like my favorite game of all time, my favorite, 3D platformer of all time. And, Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie. Have we gotten Tooie yet on the
I think so.
Nintendo? Yeah. So, I mean, those are available. They're not, I'm thrilled that they were able to make it to the Nintendo Switch Online. We haven't gotten a Banjo game on a Nintendo system, I think, since 2005, because there were 2 Game Boy Advance games like Grunty's Revenge and then Banjo Pilot, weird,
Man.
like Diddy Kong Racing ripoff featuring Banjo and pals.
Is it a
So
ripoff if it's the same team?
I don't know. That's a good question. Like it seems like, well, that's the thing is I think it was supposed to be a Diddy Kong Racing game, and then they were like, we don't have the rights to Diddy Kong anymore, so they had to put Banjo in there. But yeah, I mean, I love those games so much. They could remaster it. They could, make a whole new game. I know Nuts and Bolts didn't land well with critics, but it seems like in retrospect, a lot of people are just like, it's a good game. It's not a good Banjo Kazooie game. Like it's a fun, it's like a Lego game, build some things, but it's just not what, like Banjo Kazooie initially was like, the best at.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really think that they could, like, they gotta know. Rare has to know that people like love Banjo Kazooie. People went, just absolutely bonkers when he was announced for Smash Brothers. Like every little thing, every little like plush release and like little toy, like people are like grabbing them up. Just such a fun character duo. So yeah, come on, Rare, bring Perfect Dark and Banjo Kazooie back to Nintendo. We need this.
Full disclosure, I had this on my list. And then I remembered that you are a Banjo Kazooie sicko. And I was like, I'm going to just let him have the spotlight for this one. So I removed it from my list. So it did not steal one of mine, even though it may have originally.
All right, fair enough.
But yeah, I actually thought about that. And I was like, oh, what about like, we're already getting like Yooka-Replay coming over to Switch whenever that comes out. We have the ukulele franchise, which, as we talked about last time you were on the show, absolutely slaps, especially the Impossible Lair. That game is incredible. But yeah, I am for a new Banjo-Kazooie game coming over to Switch, especially if they pay it the right kind of attention and love, and like they don't just like try to slap the Banjo-Kazooie brand on something that is not, just very decidedly not a Banjo-Kazooie style game like Nuts and Bolts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they need to do it right. There was a weird. Have you ever played Nuts and Bolts?
I haven't, but
It's kind of
I've
a
watched my coworkers do it, or my former
yeah, like the
coworkers.
start of that game is like making fun of the old Banjo Kazooie games. It's like, oh, like people just want to collect things, but like that's not what they really want. And I'm like,
Screw those
no, that is
guys.
that is what I really want actually. I just need like mindless, golden puzzle pieces to run after. But yeah.
All right,
All
so
right.
my last two, one of them is a I wish this was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and one that I know you'll agree with because for reasons. Let's just go with that one right now.
Okay.
I see it over your shoulder. You have a Soul Calibur 2 poster,
Yes, I do.
and that is my answer. Can you believe that Soul Calibur 2, which I think most people considered the best way to play this incredible fighting game because it had Link in it,
Mm-hmm.
that was the last time we got it on a Nintendo console. Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube in 2002. Give us a new Soul Calibur game, bring it back to Switch or Switch 2, and put Link back in the game, baby.
Oh
Let's
man,
go.
but make it Toon Link just to mix it up.
Hey, I mean, it can't be worse than having Yoda. Remember when they put
Oh
him in there?
yeah, yeah,
What was that, Soul
yeah.
Calibur 4?
Yeah, 4 or 5. I can't remember. All I remember is my friend bought it, and inside there was like a coupon for like Church's Chicken or something with Yoda's picture on it. It was so weird. I'm like, what a
I would frame
fun
that.
tie-in. Oh man, yeah, yeah. No, that was a big deal back in the day. I used to go to my GameStop, my like GameStop in the mall that I eventually worked at. And I would like ask them like every time a new poster would go up, like, can I have that? Like, can I put my name on it? And then when it got like taken down for, they were done promoting it, they would like call you, whatever number you'd written
Oh,
down. They'd be like,
nice.
come get your poster. Um,
So is that where
and
that came from?
yeah, that's where that came from
Whoa.
GameStop. But I remember this one specifically because I wrote my name and my number on it. And then um, I double checked like a few weeks later and someone had like scribbled my name out. And I was
Oh,
like,
no.
no, like, no way. Like, how dare you? So I like put another sticker on top of it and wrote my name again. And they called me. And now, yeah, I don't even remember whose name it was, but I was just like, how dare you? How dare you try to
Wow.
steal my awesome scroll? So,
But
yeah.
you
And then,
got it. And that's all
yeah.
that matters.
And then eventually they hired me at GameStop. So, happy ending.
Yeah, there you go. So my final one that I'm going to shout out here is one that I think we know is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time a mainline Call of Duty game was on a Nintendo platform was Call of Duty Ghosts on Wii U in 2013.
Wow.
Then it pretty much went to exclusively PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. But as you know, when Microsoft acquired Activision, Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond put out a statement saying, like, hey, we've struck a multi-year, multi-entry deal with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms.
Hmm.
So I think that was part of them trying to fend off the like, hey, this is bad for competition because you're going to reduce the
Oh,
number
yeah.
of platforms. They're like, hey, we're putting it on a platform that it hasn't been on in over a decade. That was kind of like their counter to Sony arguing that they were going to take Call of Duty exclusive.
I see.
And they're like, oh yeah, well look at this. We're actually bringing it to Nintendo, which Activision didn't do on its own for over a decade. So we know that's coming, but I just wanted to shout that out that, it would be cool to have Call of Duty back on Nintendo,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
even
it's
if that's never
obviously,
been the best way to play it.
yeah. I mean, it's obviously like a huge franchise. And I think, Nintendo tends to skew younger because of, all the specific
Family-friendly games.
family friendly franchises that it promotes. But yeah, it's always nice to have those options. And there's definitely that fan base that like, the Switch is their like one and only console. And you don't want to have to miss out on the fun just because, even if it means you're playing with a smaller pool of people or the controls aren't quite as good and the graphics don't look as good, like it's just nice to have those options. So
Definitely.
yeah. Okay. So my
You have one
last,
more.
yeah, this is okay. And this is more of like another like dormant Nintendo franchise. And it is Panel de Pawn Puzzle
Oh
League.
wow.
Yeah. Puzzle League. I love the Puzzle League games, and Panel de Pawn is actually on Nintendo Switch Online, the original Japanese version. You can go
Ooh.
play it. It's still in Japanese, but like this is probably my favorite puzzle video game series like of all time. Um, I know we're going to talk about Pokemon here soon. Pokemon Puzzle Challenge on the Game Boy Color is like one of my favorite Pokemon games.
Wow.
It is like I
I
love
never
these
played
puzzle
it.
games. Oh man, it's so good. I don't know if it's on the
I don't
Nintendo Switch
I don't think
Online.
it is.
Okay, I think Pokemon Puzzle League is though the
Yeah.
Nintendo 64
Is that
game.
almost as good?
It's not. It doesn't quite have the um like it doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't have quite the same vibe. Like Pokemon on Game Boy, I think just works a little better. The one on Nintendo 64 is actually like themed around the anime, which is kind of weird. Like you're like
Yeah.
fighting like Jesse and James, and like Gary shows up. The one on the Game Boy is you're like battling against like gym leaders, and you're capturing Pokemon, and there's like this fantastic set of like puzzles where you just like it's like move one block and like set off a chain reaction to solve this entire thing. And I just spent like hours and hours as a kid playing it and like getting through every single one. Um,
So it seems like it was on the 3DS Virtual Console, but it has not come to Switch.
okay, yeah. There was a Planet Puzzle League in 2007 for the either the DS or the DSi. It might have been a download only type deal. There was a collection of puzzle games for the GameCube that never made it to the States that had Paneled Upon. Um, and uh, yeah, I just feel like we need it back. And they released, there was some like weird Animal Crossing like version of it, but it was like within an Animal Crossing game, like as a little like side story. And I just think they need to put some cool like Nintendo spin on it. Notoriously, people might know it better as Tetris Attack because when it
Mm.
launched in 1995, they were like, we don't know how to sell this game. Like it's just like full of fairies, and we don't think people are going to go for that. So they slapped Yoshi on it, and we're like, it's a Tetris game. And the creator of Tetris, whose name escapes me, he has gone on record as being like, I really wish I wouldn't have let them like put Tetris's name on it. Not that it's a bad game; it's just like it has nothing to do with Tetris. But yeah, actually, I have my
Uh,
little Yoshi Paneled Upon
oh wow.
Japanese copy, which is what they called it. And there's some kind of secret thing you can input, I believe, in Tetris Attack, like some kind of like code that lets you play the entire original Paneled Upon like Game Boy game. Like, yeah, or
Wow.
maybe it's some Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. I can't remember, but it's like really cool. Like it completely like overhauls the game and like takes it into some kind of test mode, and then like the full Japanese game is just there. Like they reskinned it and they just left it
Whoa.
in there. So yeah, Panel to
That's wild.
I want it back, even if
And
it's a small, like eShop or release. That'd be great.
Alexei Pajitnov is the name you were looking for creator of Tetris.
Yeah, yeah. I did a podcast episode that was just about Paneled Upon, like a history deep dive a few years ago, and yeah, big fan.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell you are very well informed about Panel
Yeah.
the Pond. So I have one more, I guess, that's kind of maybe a bit of a stretch.
Okay.
Monster Hunter. So we've gotten Stories and Rise on the Switch, which are or they were at one point exclusive to Nintendo. But I would say that like the mainline games, World and Wilds, the upcoming Monster Hunter Wilds, not coming to Switch, kind of half qualifies it for this. And then I also wanted to say like, hey, here's a game franchise that did not appear on the Switch, but I would love to see it return to the Switch too in some meaningful way, and that is Star Fox. Pour
Oh.
one out for the animatronics.
Yeah, I mean, Star Fox Zero wasn't quite the game I think that a lot of people hoped it would be.
No.
But yeah, I definitely think Star Fox deserves, a new game or a remake of a remake of a remake. I mean, Star Fox 64, which many people consider to be the best one, is essentially a remake of the first game. but there's some good ones out there. I mean, the GameCube. I mean, Star Fox Adventures is more of a Zelda game.
Yeah.
But what's the other one on GameCube?
Assault.
That one's great. I love the
It's pretty fun.
multiplayer on that. Yeah,
I've talked about
yeah.
the pitch that Retro Games, Retro Studio, actually had for a Star Fox game about a decade ago. There was a former artist who had this pitch about, like, you know, having it basically be like an open galaxy game where, like, you can choose what missions you want to go on, and it's a sequel to 64, and like you're rebuilding Corneria as a mercenary team, and you go on and you take different missions, and you can choose which ones you want to take, and then at the end of the mission you get your payout, and you can choose how much you want to send back to Corneria for the rebuilding efforts, and how much you want to take for yourself to invest in your R-Wings upgrades.
Oh,
and
that'd be cool. Yeah,
that's such a cool concept, and I wish they would have let them make that, but like it sounds like it never even made it past like the pitching phase, which is unfortunate. But that's the way that I because everybody's like, oh, well, how do you do Star Fox like in a modern setting? Like, right? Because like Star Fox 64 is a lot of fun, but it doesn't have the depth that I think that a lot of people crave for like a big AAA release.
Yeah, that's true. Somewhat related, actually very related. For some reason in my Spotify, I got suggested this album called Star Fox and Chill. And it's just like all
lo-fi?
Yeah, it's like lo-fi.
That's
it's
cool.
by Hotline Sewani and A-Bug, and I've just been bumping it for the last few days.
Man.
So the fact that you brought that up is, yeah, it's super chill, like background, but man, it's got those like retro vibes. So check out Star Fox and Chill if you want.
I might actually
get on that.
So we are going to take our final break of this episode, Ben, and when we get back, we will be speculating on what we might see during Pokemon Day when that happens next week. We will be right back. We are back one last time for this episode, and a week from now, we will know what the Pokemon Company showed us during its Pokemon Presents presentation. And while we have an idea of what will be shown, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what we will see, what we might see, and what we hope to see to close out this episode this week. So Ben, Pokemon Day also happens to be my birthday, which means that I always get news of one of my favorite franchises on my birthday every single year. But I have to say that I feel like more often than not, I come away a little underwhelmed.
Yeah, that seems to be the tradition, I should say, every year. I mean, I think it's because, you know, the Pokemon fandom is so huge and so passionate, and everybody's coming in with these predictions of grandeur, and then you get Pokemon Sleep or whatever, and you're just a little bit disappointed. So it's understandable.
Isn't there a Pokemon mobile app where it's like brushing your teeth or something?
Yeah, my nieces and my nephew are big into it. So
the core gamer is not about that, though. But so this year's Pokemon Presents stream happens on Thursday, February 27th at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, and you know that we will be covering all of the news out of that on next week's episode. But before we talk about what we think might show up on that stream, Ben, let's look back at what we've gotten the past 3 years on Pokemon Day. So 2022, we got Pokemon Scarlet and Violet announced, so that's a big one. Pokemon Legends Arceus Daybreak update announced and launched. Shaman came to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Alolan Pokemon came to Pokemon Go. Pokemon Masters EX gave gifts to players who logged in. Fair enough. Pokemon Cafe Remix added a special outfit for Bulbasaur and had an in-game event for Shiny Piplups. And then finally, Hoopa came to Pokemon Unite. So that's a decent one.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of things there. A lot of little things.
Yeah. And then also an update to the best Pokemon game of that year, which was Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Yeah.
So yeah, solid 2022 Pokemon Day. 2023, we got new Paradox Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet. So whatever. Announcement of Scarlet and Violet Hidden Treasure of Area Zero DLC. So that was big. Our first official look at Pokemon Sleep. Pokemon Go Plus Plus got announced.
I don't remember that.
It was just an extra little like Pokemon Go Plus peripheral, the little like clicky thing, but like it had added functionality and like the ability to like set different parameters for what you wanted it to do when you clicked it.
Hmm.
It was very like geared towards the hardcore Pokemon Go player. Pokemon Concierge, which is that very charming stop motion Netflix series, was announced.
Yeah.
Very cute. Pokemon Trading Card Game Classic was announced. That was that super premium board with like the reprints of some of the first edition of like the Pokemon cards. Do you remember that? It
Yeah,
was
I
like
believe
something like
so.
$250 or something like that. It was like a
Yeah.
really premium product. There were 5-star champion select ticket scouts added to Pokemon Masters EX. I don't really know what that means because I don't play Pokemon Masters EX. Plus, they added Hop and Zapdos, Bead and Articuno, Marnie and Moltres, and then Leon and Charizard in the game. So you could fight them. Zacian from Sword and Shield joined Pokemon Unite. Paldea starters were added to Pokemon Cafe Remix, and new Great Chef outfit was added for Greninja. So I think that's a much less
Important.
exciting Pokemon Day than what we got in 2022.
Right.
And then last year, 2024, the headliner, Pokemon Legends ZA, was announced. So that was a big one because, again, follow up to the best Pokemon game in recent memory. Pokemon TCG Pocket was announced, which is, as you had indicated, blowing up.
Hmm.
New Terra raid battles starring the Kanto starter evolutions in Scarlet and Violet. So if you're a Pokemon OG like me, that was exciting to see Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard in Scarlet and Violet in like their boss battles. Pokemon Horizons, which was the anime that was right after Ash Ketchum kind of was shifted away from being the star of the show.
Hmm.
They had an event in Pokemon Go. Gita and Glamora, Silver and Tyranitar, and Signa Suit Gladion and Magerna came to Pokemon Masters EX. Most of those are words. Miraidon, Phalanx, and Ceruledge came to Pokemon Unite, so that was a pretty big update for that game. Raikou came to Pokemon Sleep, and Gimmighoul coins came to Pokemon Cafe Remix, plus new outfits for the Paldea starters, and Koraidon and Miraidon joined the game. So those were the precedents that have been set the last 3 years. So with those in mind, I'm going to run down some stuff and let's see if we're in agreement here, okay?
Okay. All right.
So we can probably assume we're going to get updates for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Masters EX, Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Sleep, and Pokemon Cafe Remix. Are we in agreement there?
Yeah, and I would also say maybe something special for Pokemon TCG Pocket.
Yes, that I think that we're going to get the next expansion of Pokemon TCG Pocket. Uh, Maybe something more for that, but like I think that maybe like an in-game event.
Mm.
You still with me here with like
Yeah.
all the predictions here?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then I think the other safe assumption that you will probably be with me when I say that we're going to get our first real look at Pokemon Legends ZA.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe some starters, maybe a release date, new legendary, like throw like an actual new Pokemon into the mix. I could definitely see them doing that. There's been like huge speculation on all of those things. Like what does ZA mean? Because if you just take the initials PZA, I think it's going to be about pizza. But
Yes, very
yeah,
clearly. Well, I think that it's a play off of the fact that, Pokemon X and Y is where Lumio City is. So X,
uh,
Y, Z, and then A, which I think it indicates that there's some sort of like time weirdness going on.
bridging the gap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a
So
cool theory.
when do you think we get this game? What's your prediction for release window?
I mean, do you think that we're gonna get separate but the same versions for Switch and Switch 2? I
That
mean,
was my next question. I wanted to know if you
okay.
think cross gen.
I really don't know. I mean, they could like Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess, this bad boy if they wanted to. They could make it a launch game for the Switch too. That would be huge. Um, but yeah, I'm predicting more of a like fall. I guess they could drop it like summer, but that seems too soon almost. But yeah, I would say like a September, October release is my guess.
It seems like Nintendo is trying to get a first party title every month.
Mm.
So I could see it coming a little bit earlier if they end up doing it that way. But also, like we're going to learn a lot more in the coming weeks about like what Nintendo has on the horizon here. Uh, do you think we get a tease of Gen 10?
I think we do. I think we get a very small tease of that because I think it is, probably coming 2026. Or have they already officially announced that? I can't remember, but
I think
like,
that there was a big leak that happened, I think last
right,
year, and they did say that like Gen 10 was being worked on
for
right now,
2026.
which
Yeah,
is to be assumed anyway.
most likely. Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I'm one of those guys that thinks, if you want to take another extra year or whatever, like just pump out a few spin-offs that are fun and good. And if you want to make that mainline game like really, detailed and full of whatever, charm and monsters you want, take your time. But yeah, I could 100% see them, hinting at maybe a location. Um, or like teasing some of the starters, perhaps. I never know what they're going to go with the names. I'm still waiting on Pokemon Purple to happen. So we'll see.
What other predictions you got for me? Do you think we get anything for Nintendo Switch Online? Like people have been saying, like, all right, we need the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance
Yeah,
games
no,
on
that
Switch
is,
Online.
yeah, Gen 1 and 2 on Nintendo Switch online for Switch 2, I think would be a big
Oh,
one.
really?
And
For
like,
Switch
yeah,
2?
yeah, like I don't know about like specifically launch, but just like they're in the works. Like, hey, we are going to bring the original like red, blue, yellow, maybe silver, gold, crystal games to the Nintendo Switch Online, hopefully with some kind of like online support so you can trade or whatever. But yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, people have been wanting it for years, but then again, Nintendo is like the king of we've been wanting this for years, and like screw you, we don't
Look
want
no
to give
further
it
than
to you.
Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
That's right. Yeah, a friend told me recently. He's like, "Did you hear they're probably going to come out with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on Switch too?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Says like every Nintendo predictor for the last 6 years. So you never know.
All right.
Let's see.
What about
Uh,
remakes?
remakes. Let's go Johto.
Oh,
Give it
I'd
to
love
me.
that.
I
I would love that so
I
much.
really liked Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. Like I know they were like dumbed down, like simplified versions, but honestly, I think I enjoyed them more than the most recent like Pokemon games because those ones they feel like I don't know. I like Pokemon's a little bloated, I feel, in my own personal opinion. I still love it. I've still bought every single mainline game. But like there's just God, there's so much. There's so many Pokemon now.
There are.
I yearn for the days of 150 Pokemon, and that's probably just me, the nostalgia kicking in.
I'm the same
But
way.
yeah, but I would totally buy Let's Go Johto. I don't know if they're like willing to go back to that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, what's the next thing to get remastered? Is it X and Y?
Man. X and Y, I feel like they're already, but again, they did the Hisui region was the Gen 4 region, right? Like
I
it
believe so.
was Sinnoh, right?
Right.
So they did Pokemon Legends Arceus and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in the same year.
Mm-hmm.
So they really shined on that gen with that year. So it would make sense
Yeah.
that they would do X and Y. I think Johto is the one that I would most want though, because I love Gold and Silver.
Yeah. It's great. The amount of content they packed into that,
Oh yeah,
is just outrageous.
it is.
And so like if they could yeah, like it overwhelmed me as a child. Like I was like, "Oh my god, like you've opened up the like other world at the end of this game." Like that's crazy. So, yeah.
What about spin-offs? You have any predictions for spin-offs we might see?
Pokemon Puzzle Challenge 2. The game that everyone really wants. It's not just me, I swear. I mean, I would love that. I don't think that's going to happen. It's possible. I'm always down for new Pokemon Pinball. I really like Pokemon
Yeah.
Pinball as a kid. And the Ruby Sapphire version also like pretty good. So yeah, like I kind of like it when they get weird with it a little bit. Um, there was notoriously I tweeted out for like a Pokemon Day or some big announcement. I was like not gonna watch the Pokemon announcement. I was like, just wake me up if they announce Pokemon Snap 2, and they did.
They
And it was
did.
like everyone was like DMing me like, wake up, Ben, it's happening. So I like the new Pokemon Snap. That was fun too. So I'm down with that.
Yeah. I
What
was
about
thinking
you?
like Pokemon Pinball would be great.
Yeah.
Pokemon like the TCG RPG that they put out back on Game Boy Color
Oh, that'd be
would be
cool.
incredible, like an updated version of that. I even thought like I know that like the appeal to this back on the N64 was like, hey, like the Pokemon look almost like they do in the anime. And that was Pokemon
Mm.
Stadium. And I know that we've
Oh yeah.
surpassed that now with the mainline games, but I still think it would be cool if there was some way to bring over like a modernized Pokemon Stadium.
Man, what if they came out with the like Gen 1 games for the Nintendo Switch Online and they worked with Pokemon Stadium, also Nintendo
Ooh,
Switch Online? That'd be crazy.
that would be so good.
Yeah, I don't know if my transfer pack works anymore, so I would need that to help me out.
Any other predictions for you?
Um, no, I mean, I'm just looking down my list here. It's mostly just like ZA details, Gen 1 and 2 on Switch Online, Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, Gen 10, and then Let's Go Johto. Those are the main ones I
Let's
have.
Go Johto is the one I've been waiting for. Because I think that Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, I mean, I even talked to Junichi Masuda and Shigeru Omori
Hmm.
about like why they did that because I went to Game Freak for the Pokemon cover story that we did for Sword and Shield, and they basically were like, "Yeah, we did Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee because it was so much easier to remake a game and use that to like learn how to make a game for consoles, like learn what like how much more work it is for consoles." And then we carried all like those lessons that we learned into Sword and Shield.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I would like to think that they would learn like more lessons because they clearly need to after Scarlet and Violet. But like also like it's not like the market isn't as dominated by Pokemon Go as it was when Let's
Mm.
Go Pikachu and Eevee came out. So if they could figure out a way to keep it streamlined but not make it like motion controls and Pokemon Go style capture mechanics,
Oh, I see.
that's
Yeah.
the only thing I don't like about Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and
Who
Eevee
do you?
is
Which Pokemon do you think are deserving of having like the two separate? Like who's the?
could it be Cyndaquil and Totodile?
I don't know. I was thinking Cyndaquil for sure. Um, but I didn't know. I'm trying to think of like who from Gen 2 is like, who's gonna pull in all the fans. Like who's the cute one? Hoot hoot. Or
Pokemon Let's Go Noctowl.
let's go Sudo Widow. Unknown. Just they can do 26 different versions for all the different letters of the unknown
Oh my god.
alphabet. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past him. So I did send out a message to the people on my community Discord
Hmm.
asking them for their predictions, and we have a few that I'm going to read off here before we wrap up. Mad Genie Confused Koala says, I predict a small TCG Pocket tournament announcement in app, possibly coinciding with a free promo card. That seems very plausible.
Yeah, for sure.
Paul at Drunk on Mako says, any sort of update to Pokemon Legends is what I'll be seated for. For a fun surprise prediction, they'll announce a new Pokemon Pinball. Hey, there we go.
Yeah, why not?
Three Sword Sama says, probably gameplay from their new game. Haven't heard a peep since March of last year. It's
Hmm.
true. Pratable says, I like this one. Pokemon music coming to the Nintendo Music app and or Alarmo. That's
That
actually
would
probably a
that'd be
very good
good.
prediction.
Yeah, yeah, that would be cool.
Nintendo 101 says, I don't own any Pokemon and have only played Red, but maybe they drop some of them on Nintendo Switch Online. Also, I predict Pokemon Day falls on Brian's birthday. I think I remember him saying that. Yes, that's a good prediction.
It's
And then
probably gonna be.
Chaps My Ass says, we will get to see a little more gameplay from Legends. Pokemon Pinball gets added to Nintendo Switch Online Game Boy library, and we get a hint at a Switch 2 game collection of Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. That
People want Pokemon Pinball. I'm glad I'm not the only one that is predicting that.
I'm glad that Pokemon Pinball is getting some love. Those games were amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I like them, and I mean, let's be honest. The original one was pretty limited. Like there weren't that many boards. Like they could really like go in and make some like fun mechanics. of like, like Pokemon eating the ball and spitting it back out, or like getting electrified, or I mean, you could do all sorts of elemental stuff with it and make it really cool and like varied and unique. So come on, Nintendo, give us what we want.
So yeah, I think those are all the predictions that the community has submitted. Anything else you want to predict before we wrap up here?
They're going to come out with a 3-on-3 Psyduck basketball game. That's it. That's my last one.
Perfect. And that'll wrap up this episode. Thanks so much for joining me, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on.
And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As you know, my Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in, but you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com, or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. That is also my YouTube channel name, and subscribing to that would help the show a lot. Ben, where can people find you online?
They can find me on Blue Sky at radishgames.com. They can find me on TikTok at Bentendo64, and also on Instagram at Bentendo64. Or no, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It's Bertoli64. I changed it. So,
Bertoli64. Consistency going
yeah,
there.
I know, and brand management here.
But that is our show for this week. Thank you again to everyone for listening. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Before we wrap up this episode of All Things Nintendo, I just want to give a special shout out to the $10 patrons to the show. Abdullah, Adam Scott, Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Chaps My Ass, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jackal, Jason Thompson, Jawar Hello, Jill Grote, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, Cody Gibson, Creeper 207, Mad Genie Confused Koala, Megan S., Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sousa, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Tux DC, Wham Bam Sam the Gaming Man, Zachary Pliggy, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. Thank you so much for your continued support.